Sanchez,
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra.
She's here someplace.
It looks like her audio is, she's having trouble getting her audio to connect.
Okay, thanks.
Sandra, you're here, aren't you?
Councilmember Figueroa.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councilmember Charette.
Here.
Councilmember Nickel.
Here.
Councilmember Richard.
Here.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Here.
Mayor Valdivia.
Here. All right, let's go ahead and get right into our calendar for tonight. We have 2 items. I'll turn it over to, is Rob here? I don't see Rob.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, we'll take a second or 2 to excuse staff that don't need to be involved. And are we
Mayor.
good to go? Yes.
Mayor.
Public comment?
We have 4 public comments. For
Oh, I'm sorry. Please proceed. Go ahead.
Hi, this is James Olson, and I'm calling in regards to the Oxbow project, to the closed session today, November 4th, closed session number A. And I have great concern about this developer that has dumped this concrete jungle mountain out here on the end of Palm Avenue in the Vermont area. It was covered with plastic after the last meeting with the developer, and it blew off in the first wind. Now, yesterday on Election Day, there were guys out there covering it up, and part of it's blown off today just from the breeze that we have. The city needs to really deal and play hardball with this developer. He's had numerous times he's making money off what's going on out here. Just taking the concrete and crushing it up here on Palm Avenue is just money in his pockets. The city needs to stand up to him and put him in his place and hold him accountable for making this site of concrete livable for the residents that are here. There are high concerns about what's in the air, what's in the concrete, and everybody's breathing that crap when the wind blows, and we are in the windy season. Now, I'm sure the residents here are, and most likely will be, suing the city if the city rolls over on this issue and lets the developer do what he wants. So please, Henry Nickel and Mayor of San Bernardino, get your act together, follow through, hold this man accountable, and take care of the residents for which you were elected to serve. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Helen Dimitrian, and I'm calling regarding the closed session A conference with legal counsel and anticipated litigation. First and foremost, I would really like to thank the mayor and the city council for approving the resolution 2020-265, which was modified by Mr. Nickel. That shows that you all are supporting our Vermont community and the health and well-being of the residents. In the meantime, I understand that there have been some threats of litigation regarding the residents and the developer, and I would just like to say that do not let this developer push you around. I think that we need to stand strong by the decision that you have made as a city council and the decision you have made to your residents in the Vermont area. I know that the contractor did in fact breach at least 5 areas, and it is their responsibility to do what they need to do for cleanup. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Denise Casas, and I am a Vermont resident. My husband and I have lived in Vermont for 23 plus years. I'm calling regarding closed session agenda items, the 6920 Palm Avenue project. We love our neighbors and our neighborhood. We hate what's trying to be shoved down our throats with development that is not supported by solid infrastructure, just for the sake of city revenue. The developer for the project at 6920 Palm Avenue didn't have permission to dump the broken concrete and grind it on site. Oxbow was in violation of their agreement with the TUP, and the TUP has been breached in at least 5 areas. The developer has also considered ways to make money off this project, and those ways are not in the best interest of the residents here in Vermont. Crushing and selling off the aggregate that was going to be ground on site, it would be in the developer's own best interest, lining their pockets. Not only would there be unhealthy dust that would come from this undertaking, but also the noise this would create for those living on the properties immediately bordering this project would probably be greater than what is legal decibel levels for a residential area. Perhaps the district attorney should be brought in since the developer may be making a fraudulent move in the dumping contaminated debris and letting the city take the blame. We've seen a lot of development come to our area in the over 23 years we've been here. We realize that new homes and development are going to happen. We understand that there will be growth. The issue is that it needs to be done correctly and properly within a well-designed plan and a solid infrastructure to support the growth. The past projects haven't been supported by solid infrastructure. We don't want to see this repeated. I ask that you do what's right and honorable for the residents of Vermont and ultimately for the residents of San Bernardino. Thank you for your consideration.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Sky, and I'm a resident of Vermont in the city of San Bernardino. I'm calling on a closed session item of the Oxbow project at 6920 Palm Avenue, tentative track 16794, in the TUP 20-033. October 21st, the council made a decision and they voted in favor to stop the crushing of the concrete debris up there and make them haul it away. And now you're bringing back under closed session to discuss it. You made the right decision. Don't change your mind. Think of the residents. The winds that's been blowing. Last Monday, it pitted my car, and I can't imagine what it's doing to the homes across the street from the project. It's a hassle. They still intend to crush it on site and sell it for off-site use someplace else. This has been a bad deal since day one. If the developer really intended to sue the city of San Bernardino, he wouldn't be talking to staff. He would have his attorney send a letter to the city. So please don't change your mind. Stick with the residents. You made the right decision. My next comment is about the election of the council person for the 5th Ward. I'm all for fair and honest elections. We've never had so many mail-in ballots, and I don't approve of mailing bad ballots coming in October and being counted from day one. This leaves a lot of questions. Hardly any votes were done at a polling place, and I've lived in the 5th Ward for almost 40 years, and we've never had an election like this. I also understand that Ben Reynoso hasn't lived in the city the 30 days, which the charter is calling for, so he shouldn't have even been on the ballot. This should have been addressed sooner. I don't know why the city clerk didn't address it then, but I understand she's no longer in the city, so it should be addressed and looked at. I'd appreciate it if you'd look into these details, and you can cancel the election, or I'm not sure what you call it, but we need to get to the bottom of this. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Okay, thank you very much, Genevieve. Let's get right into our closed session calendar. I call to order this joint regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council, the Mayor and City Council acting as successor agency to the redevelopment agency of the City of San Bernardino. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilmember Richard. Councilmember, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? If we could all rise, please.
Yes, sure. Let's everybody rise. Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Richard. At this time, I'll recognize the city clerk to please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Here.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Here.
Councilmember Charette,
Here.
Councilmember Nickel,
Here.
Councilmember Richard,
Here.
Councilmember Mulvihill,
Here.
and Mayor Valdivia.
Present. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. City Clerk. At this time, I want to send my deep appreciation to the voters of the City of San Bernardino. And while the report and final results still are not finalized and certified, I want to send my thanks to the voters of this community. Nearly 35,000 people responded to the Measure S, and we're very, very grateful. As your mayor, I'm very committed to ensure the integrity of the oversight, and I've asked and petitioned our city manager to begin and initiate that process where we conduct and begin the process of forming the oversight of the measure. The community has spoken regarding Measure S. This is a very, very big step for our community, and I am deeply, deeply grateful to the voters of this city to extend the life stream and lifeblood for this community to continue providing services to the City of San Bernardino. On behalf of our city, we do extend our deep appreciation to the voters, your trust and your continued patience with our city as we forge a path forward. This time I will ask our city manager to please provide his update.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Rob Field, City Manager. Just a few quick notes. First of all, as the Mayor alluded to, the apparent passage of Measure S has put a lot of things in motion, and we will be working very quickly. As a matter of fact, we met on this morning to initiate planning to convene the Oversight Committee for Measure S, which is initially, I think, going to be essentially a morphing of the existing Measure Z Oversight Committee, but the meetings will be quarterly, which is wonderful. We have there is enough potential activity coming out of Measure S to warrant quarterly meetings, certainly, and it's going to be a great opportunity for the council to be able to collect through that body the wants and needs of the community. So there's a lot of good that will come out of that. I also wanted to note we had a couple of kind of neat things that have happened the last couple of weeks. Some of you may have noticed that our new media superstar, Chris Watson, our Animal Services Director, made the front page of the San Bernardino Sun because last month, for the first time that I know of, our animal shelter achieved no kill status for both dogs and cats, which is just remarkable. A 90% overall placement rate. I want to acknowledge that and thank her and her staff. They do a lot with a facility that's in pretty tough shape. It's pretty old, and as we move forward, we'll see how we can maybe make a few changes there. One of the things that's neat about that, though, is we've gotten a lot of interest in providing additional funding resources, and there are some potential donors out there. Tonight, we actually have it's a consent item, but it's item 12. A donation fund for animal services. This is a place where people can donate either their time or their treasure or their talent, but mostly hopefully treasure, to the city. It is a tax-deductible donation site. So we will We have the option also of establishing a nonprofit, but initially, this is the fastest mechanism we can come up with to receive funds from people who would care to donate to our animal services division, or department rather. So again, Chris, thank you, and we'll certainly be available to answer any questions, even though it's a consent item. If it comes up, we'll be happy to answer questions. CARES Act, we've received quite a bit of funding, as it turns out. From a variety of sources. A lot of it's being routed into the city through the CDBG, the HUD overseen Community Development Block Grant Program and the Emergency Shelter Grant Program, the ESG program. Monies have flowed in for a variety of purposes. For example, eviction prevention, senior nutrition, grab and go arts program, which is something that's benefiting children all across the city. PPE, personal protective equipment. There's a whole bunch of different, there are a whole bunch of different programs that are being funded through CARES Act money that's directly allocated to the city for us to then distribute. We also have received money. We just received a disbursement from the county that compensates us for some time that the police department spent on COVID-related issues, which is a sort of relieves some pressure on the city's general fund. So things are going to look, when we do get to, we're just putting the finishing touches on the year-end report for financial report for 2019-2020, and we're also going to be providing soon afterwards a report on where we are, the first quarter report for 2021, both of which I think are going to show things are in slightly better shape than they were expected to be, because we are getting a lot of one-time revenue. The Mount Vernon Bridge, a long-awaited project, is about to start. It's going to start on December 18th. We will be posting on our website in the next day or two the schedule. The bridge is going to be shut down for quite a while, and we would be remiss if we did not provide a source of information to our residents to let them know it's going to be closed down for at least 3 and perhaps 4 years, starting on December 18th. And this is just a really badly needed improvement. Of course, I drove it the other day, and man, let's just say it's really in need of replacement. Finally, we have gotten another allocation of funding of what's called PLHA funding. It's to help us in the affordable housing development world. We're receiving a total of $9.7 million over the next 5 years. We just received another allocation of funds, about a notification about a week ago. A lot of this information, by the way, is included in your updates that we provide you before each meeting, but those updates are internal, and that source, if you want additional information, is included in your handout. But we thought it was important for you to see it or hear about it, and for the residents of the city to hear about it. This is not necessarily the sort of thing that's getting it highlighted. Right, it may not appear in the San Bernardino Sun, but it's still important, we think, for city residents to hear about. There's a lot of really good stuff happening in San Bernardino right now, and in the face of the COVID pandemic and everything else, it's certainly worthwhile we think to provide a little bit of information about that. So with that, that wraps up my report, and so Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. We appreciate the update. And as the city manager had indicated, a lot of this is provided to our council members in internal memo format. This is simply to advise our community of some of the good things and happenings here in the community on more administrative matters. This time we'll move right into presentations. Joining us tonight is Rachel Carpenter, and presenting Caltrans Safety and Speed Management Activities. The floor is yours, Ms. Carpenter, and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. I have to apologize in advance. This lighting in the room is just awful. It's much too blue, so I apologize that I'm looking quite washed out. I'm going to share my presentation. Just give me 1 second. Mayor, can you confirm that you see the slide?
Absolutely. Thank you. Please proceed. Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, again, hello to everyone. My name is Rachel Carpenter. I am Caltrans Chief Safety Officer, and I am here tonight to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the work that Caltrans is doing related to safety and some speed management work. So in particular, I'm going to highlight a number of our recent activities related to both speed limits and also engineering solutions. And lastly, I'm going to ask for your help. There's a wealth of knowledge across the state and, including in this virtual room related to these topics. And Caltrans is interested in tapping into your knowledge as we work on improving traffic safety in the state. So I'm going to provide a quick recap of the California State Transportation Agency's Zero Traffic Fatalities Task Force Report of Findings, which is the original source for many of Caltrans' current safety and speed management efforts. You may know that in 2019, the legislature passed Assembly Bill 2363, which directed CalSTA to convene a task force and investigate speed limit setting methodology, then to deliver a report of findings to the legislature. So we published that report and submitted it to the legislature in January of this year after a nearly 9-month-long process of research and discussions with not only traffic safety practitioners, but advocates, local state officials, law enforcement, really lots of different folks from around the state. So the report contained 16 findings and 26 recommendations across 4 categories. Those categories were establishing speed limits, engineering solutions, enforcement, and education. Since January, when the report was submitted, several departments under CalSTA's jurisdiction, including Caltrans, CHP, the Office of Traffic Safety, have begun taking actions to further define and implement many of the report's recommendations. So in the remaining slides, I'm going to highlight those actions that Caltrans is currently working on. One of the initiatives that I'm most excited about is developing a new approach to setting speed limits based on safe system principles. So the safe system approach to setting speed limits is used worldwide, but it hasn't been used much in the US. And it's different than California's current speed limit setting methodology. So in California, currently the legislated method of setting speed limits is something called the 85th percentile speed. And it's a very outdated approach that CalSTA in their report found is no longer meeting the needs of California's multimodal complex transportation environment. So we're now taking the first steps in developing this new approach by initiating a research project. So this research will be led by researchers at the University of California, and it's going to focus on how to develop a safe system-based approach to setting speed limits for the state. So we're embarking on this project with subject matter experts really from across the state. We've developed a scope of work, we've circulated it, and we finalized that scope of work. We anticipate that the research is going to begin in January and will be completed in a year. So we plan to invite select task force members to sit on the research panel and oversee its work. So developing a new approach to setting speed limits based on safe system principles is going to take time, and it's a long-term project. In the meantime, what we're doing is exploring options to increase flexibility within the current framework for setting speed limits. So recall that's the 85th percentile. So one of the key takeaways from CalSTA's report is that the current procedure for setting speed limits doesn't offer agencies, cities like yours, enough flexibility to set appropriate speed limits on their roadways. So the report offered a number of specific recommendations to remedy this, including revising our engineering and traffic survey procedures, revising and adding new prima facie speed limit categories, as well as others. So as a whole, if implemented, this set of recommendations would provide agencies with a lot more flexibility to set appropriate speed limits based on context on their roadways. So while the specific recommendations in the report include, sort of tweaks and adjustments to the current procedure, we're open to additional suggestions or requests on how to improve flexibility for cities and agencies. So at the end of my presentation, as I mentioned, I want to discuss how you can help and how you can get involved. And I do want to, note explicitly that any possible changes to the law setting speed limits would require a statutory change. And so, further analysis and discussion with the administration would obviously need to happen before anything could change to law. While I've discussed some of the changes that we can make now to establishing speed limits, one of the key takeaways from the task force meetings last year was that Caltrans has an opportunity to enhance its technical resources and training to help cities like San Bernardino better leverage existing speed limit setting laws. So the current methodology is complicated and it's confusing, and we found that state and local agencies would benefit from a single source of guidance on how to establish speed limits. Many large cities in our state are very familiar with the policies and the procedures and the statutory mandates around setting speed limits, but others really aren't aware of the myriad of existing rules and how to deviate from the 85th percentile, or they interpret these rules differently. So while we continue to work on longer term changes to the way we set speed limits, we're also working to provide step-by-step guidance that can help agencies and local agencies across the state better understand how the process works now. So we've developed an initial strategy, and we're currently developing detailed work plans for these three sort of interrelated activities. So that's establishing technical assistance resources that are a web page is the first training, and then also revising the California Manual on Setting Speed Limits so that it's that sort of one-stop shop for how we set speeds. As a first step, what we're doing at Caltrans is conducting sort of an exploratory focus group with subject matter experts to better understand the topics in the existing speed limit setting law that are most confusing or are subject to different interpretations. We want to really take the time to listen to experts and practitioners across the state to understand the sticking points and the stumbling blocks in the current process so that we can provide more explicit guidance and assistance. So following this information gathering phase, we're going to analyze the improvements and then develop the content. So we anticipate, we've already put up a web page. We anticipate that more of the detailed technical assistance resources, that the FAQ in particular is going to be completed by the end of the year. In addition, we're pursuing improvements in the area of setting speed limits, related to roadway engineering design and traffic control. So specifically, we launched an initiative to improve the way in which traffic control devices are used and deployed across the state. So in California, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or MUTCD, governs the use of traffic control devices, that's signs, signals, markings, and cities must either apply to use to implement new devices through this sort of lengthy experimentation process, or they must go through an interim approval process. We recently conducted a survey of over 4,500 local agencies across the state in order to better understand how we can improve the experimentation and the approval process to meet your needs, how we can help you get new innovative signs, striping, markings out on the road. So we received a lot of really great feedback, and we're currently analyzing the results. Some of the respondents indicated that we need to add standards around signing and striping for modes like scooters and e-bikes. Other respondents indicated that the process to add new standards is just too drawn out and causes jurisdictions then to just implement new striping, for example, without going through the process. We learned that, some of the survey respondents expressed a need for the ability to make sort of short-term traffic safety improvements in response to an immediate traffic safety situation, as well as quick build guidelines and pedestrian and bike improvements for urban settings. So the survey closed about a month ago, and we're in the process of analyzing the results and really in an attempt to try to help cities hear them and try to improve our guidance so that we can help you make safety improvements, as quick as possible. our traffic control device survey, includes responses related to improving pet and bike safety. And this is an area where Caltrans has actually made a lot of significant progress over the last few years. So one of the recommendations in CalSTA's report was to make some bike and ped pilot programs that identify and address locations with ped and bike related collisions permanent. So the department has piloted some programs, and the report really made a statement that we need to make those permanent. So what we've done is actually made them permanent. None of these programs provided in the past a regular mechanism to look at locations where pedestrians and bikes were getting killed and seriously injured. So, like I said, I'm happy to report that we've made these programs permanent. For both the ped and bike monitoring programs, we implemented sort of reactive and proactive programs. So that's both looking at the locations where pedestrians and bikes have gotten killed, but then also looking proactively at locations where they may be killed or seriously injured based on what we know about those locations where they have been. So in a simple example, if you know that there are lots of pedestrians getting hit at locations without sidewalks, then we will implement in advance of a collision a sidewalk. So it's that's a very simplistic example, but what we're doing is really looking to develop a very full-fledged proactive safety program for pedestrians and bicyclists. I hope you can see that Caltrans is working hard to make California's roadways safer for all users, and we're open to new ideas and feedback on how to best accomplish this. So if you want to get involved, please send your suggestions and ideas for improvement to our new safety program website that's shown on the screen. You can feel free to send any suggestions, but our immediate need is for suggestions on how to enhance technical assistance resources. So that's manuals, websites, documentation, training related to the existing speed limit setting methodology. So we're very committed to developing a new safe system approach to setting speed limits and exploring how to give cities more authority to lower their speed limits. But these, like I said, are more longer term processes and involve statutory changes. So in the meantime, there's an immediate need to clarify our current methodology and educate stakeholders. So please let us know how we can do this. Thank you so much for your time. If we have time for questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, we want to thank you, Ms. Carpenter. This is very much needed. I first learned of you when I was at a SCAG meeting, and I heard your presentation. And I immediately thought, I need to bring Rachel Carpenter to our city and present, because we do have, this is a growing issue in our community in the city of San Bernardino. And we have certain highways that we want to work in collaboration with you on some of these opportunities where we can reduce our speed and ensure that bike and pedestrian safety is really important to us. We've had several issues in our community, and we want to address those head on. We'll open it up for a few questions. We do have to keep moving, but Councilman Mulvihill, go ahead, sir.
Yes, Rachel, we have had issues from time to time about it's 85th percentile, is that right? Where the city has followed kind of like the iron rule that the 85th percentile is kind of hard and fixed, and so they've amped up in a residential area speed limits of 45 miles an hour, which in a residential area with all the driveways and the bikes and pedestrians crossing and the kids. Now, what you said, are you coming out with more flexible rules that recognize the environment that this is in? That it's not a commercial area, it's not a wide open area, but it's a residential area. But I think people, are just going faster. They don't, you don't see people going 25 miles an hour, even in a school zone. People just generally tend to go faster. And so if you're using a radar gun, in 45 looks like 85th percentile. What do you have any kind of comment on that?
I absolutely do. Thank you for the question. We're sort of in a sticky situation right now because the 85th percentile is written in law. And there is some flexibility that's allowed to, allows you to deviate slightly, but really that's, it's not clear to a lot of our practitioners, and it's really not much flexibility. So I mentioned in the presentation sort of a two-step approach. What we're doing as a first step is trying to increase that flexibility, sort of tweaks to how much you're allowed to deviate from the 85th percentile. The long-term approach is completely moving away from it, moving away from driver behavior. So you make a great point. Right now, does it make sense to set the speed limit as the 85th percentile? Does it really take into account the context of the roadway?
Exactly.
The children running, the peds and the bikes, if you're in a neighborhood. Well, I think we realize that it doesn't. And so what we need to do, though, is develop a new process, which is going to take time. So, yes, we currently are sort of have our hands tied. We're working on a new process while also trying to increase flexibility in the interim.
We'll look forward to that. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Nickel.
Yeah, just quickly from our staff, is Kendall Drive specifically between 40th and University considered a state highway?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Alex, are you there? I can't see on my screen.
The reason I'm asking is we've had a number of fatalities along Kendall Drive due to excessive speed. It's become a racetrack. We have a number of crosswalks that go across that are have very poor lighting and markings. And it's been sort of a perennial issue for us in this area. What can we do to calm down that traffic? What can we do to improve the pedestrian safety and for all those interlinking intersections for those neighborhood streets that link to Kendall? It can be very dangerous. I've almost gotten hit several times trying to pull out onto Kendall because of the excessive speed. What programs or how might we work with you to develop some speed calming measures, and what measures are available, whether it's lighting or striping or other things that we can utilize that have been proven to work?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's there's not no worse a situation than when we have fatalities and serious injuries as a result of excessive speed, and that's pretty common across the state. What we know is that there is a direct relationship between speed and fatality risk. So that doesn't matter, what the crash type is. As you increase speed, so does the risk to becoming a fatality. And so you're spot on asking about traffic calming, asking about how we can improve the environment for pedestrians and bikes. In decreasing the speed limit is only part of a solution. Putting up a sign that says everyone drive a certain speed doesn't, it does help. The research shows that it does reduce speeds, but it's not, it needs to be coupled with engineering solutions. So, depending on that specific roadway, maybe you can look at speed humps, you can look at chicanes, you can look at geometric changes to the roadway that then require drivers to slow. So it's sort of a self-enforcing environment. Then what we can do as engineers is once drivers slow down, we can set in this sort of complicated way that we have the law set. Once the drivers slow down, then we can set the speed at a lower mile per hour. So I would encourage staff to reach out to our safety program. We can help. We have a pedestrian safety countermeasure toolbox that we can provide to you that gives a number of different countermeasures that can help, improve the environment.
Yeah, I did. Just one quick follow-up. Now, speed humps, I've been told, I've heard it from different sources that we can't have them in our city because of emergency response, but yet I go to other communities and they have them. What is the verdict on speed humps? What are the requirements? Where can they be, and what are the limitations to putting them in?
You're asking really good questions, and right now the state doesn't have guidance to provide to you. There's not, we don't put out standards around speed humps. So it's usually up to your staff to develop your own guidelines. What I've seen cities do, and what we've looked into is cutting slots in speed humps to allow for emergency vehicles to pass through. So they call them, speed cushions. So you're cutting slots to allow for the heavy vehicle to pass through. Then it doesn't impact their operation. But I think it does depend on the posted speed limit. It's probably not appropriate to put a speed hump on a freeway, 70 miles per hour, something like that. So it's really up to your city staff then to develop guidelines. But we're here to help.
Well, once again, Ms. Carpenter, we thank you for your time tonight, and what a wonderful presentation. And we want to encourage our city manager and our staff to please follow up with Ms. Carpenter. She's referenced a resource toolkit for our community. And we thank you again, once again, Ms. Carpenter, for your presentation tonight.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the second item on tonight's calendar for presentation is a proclamation of the National Nurses Practitioners Week. This is a proclamation of the Mayor and City Council recognizing and honoring the American Association of Nurse Practitioners in National Nurse Practitioners NP Week from November 8th through the 14th of 2020, whereas nurse practitioners serve as a trusted health provider for patients in our state, and whereas in this year, 2020, we celebrate the International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, and whereas NPs work to expand access to care in underserved communities, they end the health disparities and combat systemic racism in healthcare, and whereas nurse practitioners provide high quality primary, acute, and specialty care services while focusing on health promotion, disease prevention, health education, and counseling, guiding patients to make smarter lifestyle modification choices every day. And whereas more than 5 decades of research demonstrates the high quality of care provided by nurse practitioners, and there are more than 290,000 licensed nurse practitioners in the United States. And whereas 22 states, the District of Columbia, Guam, and Northern Mariana Islands have implemented full practice authority for nurse practitioners, granting patients full and direct access to the outstanding care offered by these health care providers. Be it resolved that the City of San Bernardino Mayor and City Council does hereby proclaim November 8th through the 14th, 2020 as the National Nurse Practitioners NP Week. On behalf of the City Council and the Mayor, we salute and recognize all of our community health partners, as well as St. Bernardine's Community Hospital, Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, Loma Linda University, and our very own Gateway College that has and employs nurse practitioners in our community. With that, we'll move on to our city attorney report. Miss City Attorney, are there any items to report out on closed session?
Mayor, thank you, and to members of the council as well as members of the public. We did have a closed session discussion this evening about matters of potential litigation, and we do not have any reportable action to share this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our public comment portion. Tonight, we will recognize our city clerk to play the recorded public comments that were submitted in advance. The city clerk, please proceed.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Andy, and I'm calling just to leave a comment for open session, just a general comment. I wanted to request that all of the council members turn on their cameras tonight at the meeting. There are some council members who never show their face, and there are some council members who never show up. So we need to urge everyone to show their face and to show up to the meetings, because I believe that's a violation of their duty to serve their constituents. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, SB City Council. You guys rock. Have a good day.
Hello, my name is James Albert, and I am a 7th Ward resident here for the last 20 years in the city of San Bernardino. I'd like to comment on the proclamation for the National Nurse Practitioner Week starting November 8th and 14th through the 14th. I'm very excited that the city is recognizing this and the value of nurse practitioners in our communities and in the current state of this pandemic. Nurse practitioners play a critical role in closing the provider gap that we currently face here in San Bernardino and the surrounding region in terms of our primary care physician shortage. Primary care is very important to our communities and making sure that our constituents are getting preventative care. And I really will make myself available to the City Council, Mayor, and City staff, and as well as nurse practitioners, to see that we spread the necessary awareness for this week, and seeing how we can best utilize how given that the state of California has expanded the authority for nurse practitioners to be more independent. This is an important opportunity for our city to expand healthcare opportunities to all of our constituents, and I look forward to seeing how that plays out here in the city of San Bernardino. Thank you for your time and consideration. Again, my name is James Albert. I'm in the 7th Ward. Thank you. Bye.
This is a public comment for Treasurer Ortiz for tonight's open session. Council, as I'm looking over the agenda, I am extremely concerned by item number 3, which is a petition to bring the service user tax to the ballot. I can't, first of all, understand how something that was a topic of conversation back in April, once again in September, and October 20th was never brought to the public's attention, discussed as just a potential item in front of anybody during a public meeting. I think the lack of transparency is absolutely ridiculous. And I wonder if it was purposeful so that you guys could lie to the residents to pass Measure S without stipulations and allocations to resident-approved projects and funds and everything that they wanted, because you know that if this passes, you will need Measure S to make up the balance of a $14.5 million potential loss. So if you do that, along with the projections for an $18 million PERS contribution on our end, that's $32 million in the next coming years, where Measure S was only projected at $40 million in a high point, and you give $8 million alone to the police department. So there's the $40 million. If this measure passes, nothing goes to the residents. This is a big deal, and waiting till 2022 to put this on the ballot puts us in even more of a disadvantage if it does pass. Because then what? Are you going to come to us for a tax hike to make up the difference? Because we're going to still want the promises that you made now? This is a big deal, and you guys need to think about it. I am in full favor of having a special election so that we can decide now and know what the game plan will be in 2 years. Thank you.
What's up, everybody? This is Robert Porter. I'm a vice president of the 7th Ward. I'd just like to call in and say that it was a cool election yesterday. I liked the way things went. I know there's still some to be counted, but it looks really good for Measure S. I'm glad you all are getting the money that you can use to do better things in the community. I'm hoping that you'll have metrics and checklists and, ways of looking at how you spend the money, so we'll all feel comfortable with the way you're doing it. I mean, it would be really nice if you could start giving some of that money to things like the historical societies, local non-for-profits, and other things like the homelessness. We really need some kind of answers, especially with homelessness in our city. There's a lot of people out there really hurting, and it'd be good if you guys could spend some money on them. Other than that, I want to thank Damon Alexander for all he's done for the 7th Ward already and for San Bernardino, and how hard he fought and walked and campaigned for this seat on the 7th Ward. And I just want to thank him so much for alleviating the issue that we had up there on the dais. I'm glad that he's not going to be there anymore, and maybe we can get some good stuff here done as quickly as possible so we can get back on our feet and start looking like the San Bernardino that we yearn to be. This is Robert Porter, and I love San Bernardino.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tim Prince. I'm a lifelong resident of San Bernardino, and I practice law in downtown San Bernardino. And I'm calling regarding agenda item number 3, the reduction of the service users or utility tax. And I think this is something the council should look favorably upon. I have no problem with asking the staff to prepare a report analyzing the impact, but I think we know what the impact is. The Measure S tax, which is too close to call at this point, would bring in $40 million a year, and this would reduce that by $15 or $14 million. And the Measure S was an overreaching attempt to quadruple the sales tax, so the city should be very happy that that looks like it might be on its way to passing. And when the city gets its report, it should decide to adopt this without having the expense and trouble of an election, because that's the least that the city could do to ease the burden on the taxpayers who have to pay this new $40 million tax, which was done without restrictions, without safeguards, without accountability. So 3% would bring the city's utility tax in line with other cities. I would ask the city council to direct staff to do a survey of other local cities. You will find that 7.75% is amongst the very highest utility taxes of the cities that have them. So this modest reduction in light of the due $40 million revenue is something that the city can do as a gesture of good faith to its citizens. Let's be a city that gets the most for its dollar, that treats its citizens fairly, that encourages businesses and makes life easier for families, rather than the city that tries to extort every dollar out of the taxpayers and blow it on lawsuits and closing City Hall when it's unnecessary, and all the things that you guys waste money on, including the city clerk and the city attorney waste, the mayor's sexual harassment, etc. Don't upset the taxpayers, or we'll start another initiative and cut your new 1% sales tax as well. So this will make everybody happy and reduce it to 3%. Thank you, and have a nice evening.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. City Clerk. We appreciate it. Moving on to our staff report section, item number 3 of tonight's calendar. This is the verification of sufficiency of signatures for petition entitled Initiative Measure Proposing to Reduce the Rate of the City of San Bernardino Service Users Tax from 7.75 to 3%, and further action by the City Council on this initiative. The recommendation is before you, and we will receive now our staff report. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Rob Field, City Manager. You have in front of you a staff report. Actually, this was it's being brought to you initially by the City Clerk, Ms. Roca. So I don't know if she wanted to add anything at the front, but I do want to jump in and address this as well. So Genevieve, if you want to jump in first, I'll follow you up.
I'm just going to provide a summary of the staff report. If you'd like, I can proceed with that. So in March of this year, the city received a notice of intent to circulate a petition and proposed initiative measure. If approved, the measure would reduce the rate of the city's current service users tax from 7.75% to 3%. The city attorney's office prepared the ballot and title summary of the measure, and it was provided to Mr. Ryan Fisher, an authorized representative of the proponent, on April 2nd, 2020. The proponent then had 6 months from receipt of the ballot title and summary to gather enough signatures to qualify the measure for the ballot. Mr. Fisher timely submitted the signed petition to the city clerk's office on September 23rd, and as is standard practice, the San Bernardino County Register of Voters verified the validity of the petition signatures. Normally, the elections code requires the signatures of at least 10% of the city's registered voters to qualify a local measure. However, pursuant to Proposition 218, to qualify a local tax or reduction measure to the signature threshold was lowered to 5% of the city's registered voters who voted for any candidate for governor at the last statewide election in November 2018. The minimum requirement of signatures for the petition was 1,972. On October 20th, the city clerk's office was notified by the county registrar of voters that the petition had qualified and contained 2,339 valid signatures. The city council is required to select one of the options outlined in order to comply with the California Elections Code. And the options are as followed. Option A, adopt the measure without alteration at this meeting or within 10 days after. And although there will be no direct fiscal impact of adopting the measure without alteration, the long-term effect of this measure will be an estimated reduction in general fund revenue of approximately $14 million annually. Option B, submit the measure to the voters at the next regular municipal election on November 8th, 2022. The election will already be budgeted, and based on the estimate received for the general election held this year, the estimated cost to place the measure on the ballot is $296,000. Option C, submit the measure to the voters at a special municipal election occurring on a Tuesday between 88 and 103 days after the city council calls the election. Those dates are either February 2nd, 2021 or February 9th, 2021. Option D is to direct staff to prepare an impartial and informational report analyzing the impact of the measure on the city's land use and development regulations, finances, ability to provide public services, and the like. The report must be provided no later than 30 days after it is ordered, and if the direction is to prepare the impact report, staff intends to present the report to the mayor and city council at the December 2nd meeting. Tonight's staff recommendation is that the mayor and the city council take the following actions. 1, receive, file, and accept a certificate of sufficiency of initiative petition, and 2, direct staff to prepare a report analyzing the impact of the proposed initiative measure. We did provide an alternative recommendation, and I just want to make note that on packet page 10, there is a typo on the alternative recommendation, and it should read option B, not A. And that is to receive, file, and accept a certificate of sufficiency of initiative petition, and 2, submit the measure to the voters at the next general municipal election on November 8th, 2022, including the adoption of the required resolutions. And that is my report.
All right, thank you very much, staff. We appreciate it. The recommendation on packet page 8 is very succinct and simple. That's the staff recommendation to receive and file. And number 2 is to direct staff to prepare a report analyzing the impacts. That report will then be presented the 1st of December in about 30 days to the city council. We'll open it up for questions, comments. Councilman Mulvihill.
Yes, I guess this is to Genevieve. I'm looking at the obviously, I'd like to have more information. And doing an impartial study of just what the impact is going to be, I think is really essential. But does that tie us into having a special election then in what was it, February or March of 21?
No, once you receive the impact report at the December 2nd meeting, you would have to decide between options A through C that are listed on the staff report.
So that is between 88 days and 103 days. Is that correct?
That is one of the options if you choose to decide to place it on a special election.
Well, do we have to put it on a special election? Can we delay until, what is it, 2022?
Yes, that is one of your options.
Okay, then I guess I would personally like to see the information report, and then direct staff to prepare for a regular election where we don't have to spend I'm not quite sure there was a number, $296,000?
That estimate is
That's the general municipal election.
Yes, however, a cost estimate for a special election is not available at this time.
Would it be a lot higher than $296,000?
Typically, the special elections run higher because
I would assume, yeah.
it's paid for just by the city and it's not shared with the other cities during a general election.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
thank you.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation and have an impact report prepared by the staff to be presented in the first week in December, and then at that point we can choose. But the people have spoken, and we just want to make sure that they understand what they're getting into before the council votes to put this on the ballot. So
All
that's
right,
my
wonderful.
motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I second that.
Second by Councilmember Richard. Ms. City Clerk, let's please call the roll on the staff recommendation, and we'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard,
Yes.
and Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4. This is the Rancho Palmo project. This is the recommendation is adopt the resolution 2020-267. I'm opening the public hearing at approximately 7:52 p.m. Could I please get a staff report on this item?
Yes, this is something that this is a presentation that will be made by Mike Huntley, the Director of the Community and Economic Development Department. So Mike, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Rob. Actually, Oliver Mojica, the city's planning manager, will do the presentation, and subsequent presentation will be available for questions. So with that, Oliver.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Item number 4, this item is for appeal number 20-03. It's for development permit type P 20-04. Next slide, please. This is the location, if you recall, back in May of 2017, the Planning Commission made a recommendation to the council for the adoption of the Rancho Palmo specific plan that called for the development of 120 single-family residences and a commercial component on the most southerly end. Next slide, please. This kind of shows the surrounding areas. So you have the park over to the west, and then you have the single-family neighborhoods just to the north, and just to the west is the 215 freeway. So since 2017, the applicant has, they finalized their track map. They've been preparing their construction documents. They're ready to proceed. The next slide, please. You could ignore my bulldog in the background, please. The Rancho specific plan and the proposal under this development approval is they have 6 plans. Of course, she starts barking right now, right? The plans range from 2,000 square feet to 3,000 square feet, 3-bedroom to 4 bedrooms, and the lots range from 7,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet.
He's talking to me.
Next slide, please. And this is a street elevation of the project as it would look through the track. Again, this is going to be a gated community. So it has a lot of the amenities, has the on-site landscaping. It's got landscaping around the perimeter. A lot of the features that the specific plan had required. And again, the applicant is looking to move forward. He's actually has his drawings in plan check, waiting the outcome of this particular action. Next slide, please. So on August 18th of this year, we presented this item to the Planning Commission for consideration of the architectural drawings, landscaping, and such. With that, Planning Commission, they've made a motion to approve the project, and they took a vote of 6-0 with the added condition that there be split face block on the interiors of the lot, and I'll explain that on the next slide. And they did adopt the resolution 2020-037 approving the project. Next slide, please. This provides you with an example of the different types. As required by the specific plan, the precision block on the far left, that the specific plan called for that to be the type of material used in the side yards, basically between the 2 houses. and the split face would be around the exterior. So if you're sitting in your backyard, if you look to your right or your left, you would see the wall that's on the left-hand side of the screen. If you look towards the back or the rear of your property, you would see the split face or the block that's in the middle. So we, when we evaluated this, and when the applicant presented the notion of the vinyl fencing as a substitute to the block wall, we looked at it primarily from an aesthetic standpoint. So we felt that it was more aesthetically pleasing for the vinyl fencing, and there are several examples throughout the neighborhood that shows where that is, as opposed to the just your standard concrete block kind of thing. And typically, people in their backyards they'll plant along the perimeter and those kinds of things. And so during their deliberation, the commissioners, they thought that they would rather see the split face or the block that's in the middle throughout, including the side yards. So if you're in your backyard, you're going to see the split face all the way around. And so with that, that's the action that the commission took. They approved the project, and at this point, the applicant is only filed the appeal so that they could install the vinyl fencing just between the houses, as opposed to the split face, which is the middle section. Next slide, please. With that, our recommendation, again, we are forwarding a recommendation because it was a planning commission action there. So we basically uphold. And so our recommendation is at this point that the planning commission recommends that they deny the appeal, upholding their decision on the project. That concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions. We also have representatives from the development team as well. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mujica, do we have the appellant? Is he wishing to speak?
Yes, I think we have Jeremy is on the meeting here, I believe.
Okay, Mr. Crott, welcome, and please proceed.
Thank you, and just want to confirm you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time tonight and for your consideration of the appeal. Again, worked great with staff and appreciate all their time to consider the proposal. This was again, to just an implementation of the specific plan that was approved previously. TrueMark Homes, the builder for the site, they're very intent on moving the project forward. You may have been out there recently and seen equipment ready to go. This is the one final action that has to occur in order for all the plans and permits to be approved and move forward. So again, they're very excited to move forward and appreciate staff's assistance with that matter. The only item that's before you this evening is again about the walls. In the early stage of the plan processing, there was a discussion with staff about, as Mr. Mujica said, to talk about or to replace the walls with the vinyl fencing. A couple things were considered. One is obviously cost is a major issue. The walls are significantly more expensive, and they do really take a lot of effort and cost to put them in, and sometimes they do have an effect on the ability to plant material near them. And so when the proposal was to have nicely designed vinyl fencing to have a long lifespan, and importantly in this area, high wind load capability. You know, wind is an important issue in this area, so 100-mile-per-hour winds were considered in the design, and we're working with the building department to ensure that structural capacity or ability is there. I'm not sure if the package I sent to the city clerk's office was circulated to the council. If not, I do have, I'm not sure if I'm able to share my screen. I went through and looked at a number of the communities throughout the area to confirm that vinyl fencing is not out of the ordinary, and it certainly is not. I provided a number of examples where that can be found throughout the area. And I think the consistency is obviously the most important thing. If it's done by the builder as part of the project, it remains consistent, and it is only within the backyard and side yard areas of the homes. It's not on the outside or exterior facing areas, which would remain the split face, nicer looking wall as people drive by and see the community. So just would appreciate the consideration for the request for the vinyl fencing, which was again planned in the original submittal to the planning staff, and just really appreciate the idea that this would be allowed in this area.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kraut. Mr. Mujica, can you please put back the PowerPoint presentation? It's the final slide. And just procedurally, we want to walk through the, so just city council members, this is a, if you're for, maybe staff, you can.
If I may, again, this would, because the, you know, I got to stay, frankly, got to stay in good graces with my planning commissioners because this was their condition. So we are forwarding their will, if you will, and their vote. If the city council is inclined to allow for the vinyl fencing, then your action would be to adopt the resolution approving the appeal and thereby overturning the planning commission's approval as it related to that specific condition.
Got it. If it's the desire of the city council to approve the appeal by Mr. Kraut, then with either precision or vinyl fencing, then that would be to approve the vinyl fencing aspect. So just want to kind of set that up for you council members as you begin deliberation. So I'm closing the public hearing at approximately 8:02 p.m. We'll go into our public comment portion. Ms. City Clerk, are there any public comments on this?
No, there were no requests to speak during this
All right,
item.
very good. And we'll open it up to council members. Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes, a couple of things. There was a question last time about a master plan and a general plan. I just wanted to clarify. The general plan is comprehensive for the whole city, has all the chapter and verse of all the land uses, etc. What a specific plan does is substitutes for the general plan in a particular area. There are specific criteria, for example, in this case, lot sizes that are different from what the general plan might indicate. So a specific plan suspends a general plan for a particular area on those topics that it addresses. My other side is the fact that now these vinyl fencing, they're on concrete footings, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
And so, you know, from my point of view, I would think that, you know, the vinyl, if it's sustainable, I mean, if it's I guess my Jeremy could probably answer this question. What's the life expectancy in a number of circumstances for these vinyl fencing?
That's as far as the life expectancy. They are built for decades of retention of the same coloring. They are built with extra UV protection because they do not want to have miscoloring throughout the fencing. Again, the intention is to provide a lot of consistency and not have different colors throughout the community. So,
you know, I would prefer, you know, Mike personally, I would prefer to have the vinyl fencing in the interior areas that are out of sight. You know, kids are going to be playing here, and you know, a hard rock wall. You know, you know, I'm not quite sure where the vinyl would be less dangerous for something like that, but definitely a hard rock wall would be very dangerous for kids to be playing around. And so, you know, I would make a motion that we deny the appeal and allow the developer to use the vinyl fencing in the interior areas, as you mentioned.
I will second denying the appeal.
Do you know, I said we were going to
approve. I'm sorry. That if you want vinyl, you are approving the appeal.
Then I make a substitute motion. Then I make a substitute motion that we follow that we back our planning commission's initial decision and obligate the split face.
I second that.
Okay, Jim. So procedurally, let's.
I guess I made a mistake. Yeah, I would approve the appeal. I would approve the appeal.
Approve the appeal with plastic or vinyl
Exactly.
fencing.
The
Is
vinyl.
there a second to Jim's motion?
I will second that.
Okay, let's debate and discuss that. If there are any other, yes, Councilman Sanchez.
Yes. So I know that in this area there's high rate of winds. There's strong winds up in that area. And speaking with Councilmember Ibarra earlier today, she's seen some of this vinyl fencing tilted over, and even with concrete footing, these fences they double as a ship sail, and they catch a lot of wind And I know that this is going to be dividing two properties. So we'll still have a split face cinder block on the perimeter of the properties. But it can get just as windy in these backyards, just as windy. I mean, my backyard, when there's really, really strong winds, turns into a huge mess. And that poses a risk. And then to have just the what you call the precision face cinder block looks very industrial, very commercial. And these individuals, I mean, in the United States, the single biggest cost for most Americans is their single family home. And we want to make sure that we're not shortchanging them by making this developer happy. So we have to be able to do our part to ensure that their lifetime investment is going to be not only sustainable, but also aesthetically pleasing. So I would strongly encourage that the council back our planning commission and support and reject this appeal.
Point of order.
Thank you, Councilman Sanchez.
Point of order. I believe that my colleague made a substitute motion and it was seconded and it should be voted on.
Okay.
Or was yours a substitute motion? Or?
Yes, a substitute motion.
Okay, and I seconded it. So
there was no second to mine initially, but Henry seconded it, so that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah,
I think we can.
Hold on. Let's hold the comments, please. Let's put your mics on mute, please. We understand that Councilman Sanchez had the substitute motion or the motion, and then there was a substitute by Jim. So we're on the substitute motion. We'll talk about.
That's not correct. That's not correct.
Okay. Well,
Jim
I see it.
Theodore made a substitute motion.
I see it differently, Councilman Charette. So thank you. I'll continue with the debate on the motion by Councilman Mulvihill and Nickel. We'll talk about that and we'll take a vote, and if we'll proceed as we need to. Are there any council members who wish to debate, discuss regarding Jim's and Henry's vinyl fencing matter? Councilmember Ibarra, go ahead.
Yes, so as Councilmember Sanchez was mentioning earlier, when this was brought to my attention, my concern is the winds. Are there any other options of fencing available, like wrought iron, that will prevent the winds from knocking the fencing down? Because that vinyl fencing will go down with the winds that we experience in the north end of town. Mr. Jeremy, have you looked at other fencing options?
Thank you, Councilwoman. I guess just to note that particular issue has been discussed at length with the building official, and the requirement that they are adding on top of this, and that has to be added to the structural capacity of the walls, is greater than I think what you may be seeing in other vinyl fence requirements. The 100-mile-per-hour wind load is actually what is required, and sometimes even the block walls don't meet that requirement too. So I don't know if others have seen this as well, but block walls are pushed down occasionally at very high wind capacities. But so this would be 100-mile-per-hour rated vinyl fencing. Building official is very closely working with the designers of the fencing to ensure that would occur. As far as other types of walls, what we're talking about is the areas between the homes and again behind the front. So this would all be in the backyards. Not always would homeowners prefer a wrought iron type fencing because of just the privacy concerns. The desire to have a 6-foot opaque wall would be important in most of the homeowners' desires.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your questions, Ms. Ibarra?
Yeah.
Thank you. Jeremy, talk to us about the cost. Vinyl fencing versus precision. Look, city council members, we want to attract development to our community. I think with this proposal, there's added costs. And we want to attract business to our community. We want to attract development to our community. We want to continue in a pro-growth, pro-development, certainly with all of the building conditions afforded to our city. But nonetheless, there is a breaking point here. So Jeremy, talk to us about the cost. Planning commissioners are entitled to start mentioning that they want pink sidewalks as well, but the reality
That's not what we're asking for.
and the cost. Mr. Sanchez, please don't interrupt. Thank you. Mr. Crott, the bottom line is, what is the added cost to development on this particular request from Planning Commission?
Thank you, Mayor and council people. It is $5,000 per lot that would be added, which would be passed on to the homeowners. The important thing that was considered is that the specific plan does allow the precision block, the, I guess, more industrial looking that I think I heard one of the council members say in certain areas. The developer, the builder has upgraded that to the split face in exchange for that in the prominent areas, the visible areas from all over the streets and other locations. So I guess in exchange for the vinyl in the backyards and side yards, there is increased areas of split face to enhance the visibility, which I know Councilman Sanchez is bringing up as an issue, and that has been considered. In addition, one other item that was brought up at the Planning Commission that I wanted to mention to the council is that they had asked for additional landscape requirements than what was identified in the specific plan. So that is not a part of the appeal. The developer or the builder has agreed to the additional landscape requirements above and beyond what the specific plan requires and what they were proposing. And those are enhanced areas, especially along the prominent public areas. So I just want to mention that's an additional item that they are considering, which would add cost as well, but that's not a part, again, not a part of the appeal.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jeremy. Council member Mulvihill, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Jeremy had mentioned that block walls can be blown down to, and I've got slides. The block wall on North Park behind the Cone High School, the food preparation area. I've got slides showing when that block wall was blown down. So, you know, the fact that the winds come up and so forth. Yeah, block walls come down as well. So, and again, I think the vinyl is a lot more attractive, and I just think it's more safer for having kids around. You know, they're going to be, again, I think I finished my discussion there.
Okay, if there's no further comments, let's do a call. Councilman Figueroa, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Just to be clear, we're not talking about pink sidewalks here because that wouldn't be allowed in our code. So, but what is allowed in our code are split-faced walls, and that's what we're really talking about here. And just to be clear, the areas that are visible to the public would be double-sided split face. Is that correct? We're just talking about the backyard area, not the front yard area or the areas that are visible to the public.
Interior.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, I have a map of it if you'd like me to show it, but that is correct.
No, that's okay.
In essence, Councilman Figueroa, it's basically your neighbor's wall. It's your interior walls. And to clarify, Jeremy, the main entry points have that decorative split face. It's just these back neighbor to neighbor walls. So
correct. Yeah, behind the front yard or the front facing is also split. It's the backyard. So everything facing streets would be the split.
And your initial request was for it to be precision, right? Or was it vinyl?
I know it was vinyl that went into the planning department for review as part of the plan check process. Was vinyl in the backyard and side yard areas. It's was the proposed.
And it was decided unanimously by the planning commission for it to be split faced. Oliver, would the applicant had to have agreed to the split face in order for it to have moved forward?
Well, yes, they accept the conditions of approval, yes, but they do have the opportunity to appeal if they decide to.
But they did accept it at that time with the intention of appealing.
Yes,
my understanding is. I do disagree with Councilmember Mulvihill. I don't like, you know, and it's personal. I don't prefer the vinyl fencing. I prefer, you know, kind of the block wall instead. But I guess that's just, you know, personal preferences. Would the applicant be amenable to a precision with maybe a decorative type of split face, double-sided split face for for the neighboring walls with maybe just the top row or a scattered type of split face to create a more decorative aesthetic look?
That's more.
Yeah, I think I understand the question. It's to a combination wall of both precision and I think if there was consideration by the council, precision would be preferred as I think was shown in Mika's presentation. But the first desire again is for the cost that I mentioned, the reason for the cost and the longevity of I did check again on the vinyl fencing. They're 50-year rated. So they have a longevity of significant amount of time for the vinyl fencing.
Okay, that's all. No other questions.
Okay, Councilman Nickel.
Yeah, and this project is in the Fifth Ward, but I did give it a lot of thought, and I actually came down on the side of the vinyl. I've seen both. I've seen what this product is. It's a very good quality product. And it's not a typical Home Depot, Cheapo Depot kind of vinyl fence that you see fluttering around in the wind in a lot of cases. This is a quality fence, it's a quality material, and it's actually very aesthetically pleasing. Actually, I think it's more aesthetically pleasing than the block walls. I would strongly encourage us to do this. I think we are at a point where we're able now to develop good quality housing, and we're able to do it at a price point that I think is really advantageous for us right now. I think a lot of people are looking for new homes, and I think when we add a significant amount of cost to a home because we don't like the fence, I think that really puts us in a position where we aren't really able to optimize the opportunity in front of us. I think this makes sense. I think it's a safe material. I think it's a quality material. And I think it's an aesthetically pleasing material. I would encourage my colleagues in this case to consider this, and maybe in the future we can have discussion on other standards, but I think this will add considerably to the quality of this development and these homes.
Okay, City Council, we've had some good discussion. Let's go ahead and call the roll on Councilmember Mulvihill, support with Henry Nickel. And if we could please call the roll on Ms. City Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez.
I need clarification. Are we going to do the vote on the substitute motion, or are we just taking a vote on the floor motion?
We are taking a roll call vote on Jim and Henry's vinyl fencing approval of the applicant's appeal.
Is that the floor motion? Is that the floor motion, or is that the
Support the
substitute
appeal.
motion?
We're going to support the appeal.
Or support the appeal.
Well, I need to know if we're going to be voting on my motion.
No, your motion
get a
should take precedence.
Agreed.
Well, Mr. Sanchez, you actually uttered it first, and then Mulvihill then seconded.
Wrong.
Let's stop arguing. Let's just say.
So let's go ahead and call.
The motion was to support the appeal. Let's just think about it.
And there's a substitute motion on the floor by Sanchez, seconded by me, period. And it came after your motion, Jim. Sorry.
No, but Mr. Charette, you're seeing it inaccurately and halfway.
No, we're basing it on your recollection, and yours recollection is apparently better than mine. You're wrong, John. And there was a substitute motion by Sanchez.
Mr. Charette, you're out of order, sir. We're going to go ahead and call the roll and proceed with this meeting.
But we should know if we're voting on a motion or a substitute motion. This council deserves to know that.
Mr. Sanchez, we're not trying to.
Can we ask our city attorney?
Okay, Ms. City Attorney, please, if you could provide some guidance.
There's a substitute motion.
We're going to ask council members to please mute their mics and stop interrupting the meeting. Thank you. The City Attorney?
Mayor, as the chair, I think your issue is not whether this was a substitute motion, but whether when the motion was made. If you had a motion on the floor and someone made a substitute motion and there's a second, you do take action on the substitute motion first. From listening to you, I think you said that you thought the substitute motion was not made a second or subsequent. We may ask the city clerk what the order was if you want to go back. But the rules would require that if a substitute motion is made with a second after the first motion, you would take action on the subsequent or substitute motion first.
Okay, Ms. City Clerk, how do you have it recorded?
I have a motion by Councilmember Mulvihill to approve the denial of the appeal and allow vinyl walls. There is no second on that motion. Substitute motion by Councilmember Sanchez, second by Councilmember Charette, to uphold the Planning Commission's denial of the appeal. And then another substitute motion by Councilmember Mulvihill, second by Councilmember Nickel, to approve the appeal and allow vinyl walls.
So if that was the order in which the motions were made, then what was thought to be a substitute motion would have been the first motion, since the Mulvihill first time did not have a second, if I'm recalling that as you just stated, the city clerk. And the substitute motion, the real substitute motion, would have actually been Mr. Mulvihill's motion the second time around. Again, that's just factually if the city clerk verifies that.
And so you're saying that we would vote then on Mulvihill first?
Yeah, if in fact Mulvihill's first motion was never seconded, then what was believed to be the substitute motion made by Mr. Sanchez would have been really the first motion. So the first motion failed for lack of a second.
Oh, I seconded, but I seconded the motion he didn't make, I guess.
I seconded the motion.
Okay.
I seconded the motion.
I understand that, Councilman. We get that.
So
Call the question.
I did second.
We understand that.
Motion.
If
Councilman
council members,
Surratt, I just so that you understand, I think what happened is because when Mr. Sanchez made the motion, it wasn't really a substitute. Because when Mulvihill made the first motion, according to the city clerk, there was no second. So that first motion made by Mr. Sanchez and the one that you seconded was really came to be the original motion.
was the floor motion, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to vote on Mr. Mulvihill. Ms. City Clerk, please call the roll on Mr. Mulvihill's substitute motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
No.
Councilmember Ibarra,
No.
Councilmember Figueroa,
No.
Councilmember Charette,
No.
Councilmember Nickel,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard,
Yes.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
The motion does not pass.
So now the substitute motion.
Mayor, you're muted.
The substitute then and now proceeds with Councilmember Sanchez's motion. Ms. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel.
No.
Councilmember Richard,
No.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
No.
The motion passes 4-3.
Item number 5 is Warmington Homes project in the 3rd Ward. The recommendation is there before you. The item, I'm opening the hearing at 8:24 p.m. Can I please get a staff report?
Yes, good evening again. Mike Huntley and his group will be making the presentation on this proposal as well. So Mike.
Thanks, Rob. Oliver Mojica, the city's planning manager, will do the presentation. When he's finished, we will be available for questions. So Oliver.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, this item is the Warmington Homes project. It involves General Plan Amendment 20-03, Development Code Amendment 20-04, Development Permit 20-02, and subdivision for the tract map 20293. Next slide, please. This is the proposed project, or the application before you is the general plan amendment is to change the designation from commercial to multifamily residential, to change the zoning from general commercial to medium residential, and also to allow the development of a planned residential development that has 96 detached single-family residences. The project site is approximately 9.6 acres and is located on South Ferry Street, just south of East Laurelwood Drive. This is an aerial of the site. The 10 freeway is on the bottom part of the slide. Ferry is the street that's on the left-hand side, and the site is highlighted by the red line. And as you can see, the properties to the north are that's another PUD, detached single-family residences at a higher density. Next slide, please. This shows the zoning of the area. The commercial designation. This is a remnant piece when the freeway went in way back when. This corridor was all commercial. When the freeway was widened, this was a surplus property. It remained commercial for many, many years. And so the proposal is to change this red to the light brown, which is consistent to the zoning above that fronts on Colston on both sides. Next slide, please. These are some renderings of the property of the houses that are being proposed. So I think that the applicant, we did spend quite a bit of time. I'll call this one of my COVID childs. We started the conversation here like about early March. We were sent home, and we continued working on this, working with the fire department on fire access and water and some of the other agencies. And we got a chance to kind of look at some examples of what we were looking for, an architectural flavor of the site. Personally, I think that the applicant has put together a fabulous design for the project for the PUD, and we'll go through some of the attributes here as we proceed. Next slide, please. Again, this is another view as you meander through the sidewalk and through the project. Again, this is a gated community with the primary entrance, or the only entrance, I should say, would be off of Ferry Street. This is the overall site plan, again, showing the layout. There are some different model types, which you'll see later on. So they're dispersed, so you get that variation of the architecture as you go through the development. Next slide, please. I'm going to go through a series. These next several slides are just going to show you for the different plans that they have. So these they provide 3 different architectural styles from each of the floor plan types: the Monterey, Santa Barbara, and the Spanish Colonial. Again, there are 2-story homes, 3-car garages. There's a tandem component to it. If we can go through the next slide, please. This is the floor plan that corresponds to the previous elevations. Next slide, please. Again, these are same style, just a different floor plan style. Next slide, please. Again, as you see, they start providing a variety on these homes. Next, please. And next, please. And next, please. So this is, I wanted to highlight this site plan here. This shows the open space component. One of the things that when we first met with the applicant is, our code doesn't have exact specific standards for planned developments. But when we looked at this, it's actually at a lower density than what's allowed. He's allowed this particular zoning designation allows for 12 units to the acre. He's actually below that. So what we asked for is we'd like to see a project that provides some amenities. You have your private backyards and your private areas. In this particular thing, the largest, some of the larger backyards, they range from about 937 square feet. The smaller backyards, which are in the internal part of that loop there, those backyards are smaller, but they are not less than 500 square feet in those backyards. We also provide for a common open space. You will see those the goldenrod color or the light brown, however it comes out on your screen there on both ends. That's approximate, and it averages out when you add all these open space areas and what have you, it averages to about 1,200 square feet of common open space that's provided for each unit. We also disperse some guest parking stalls within the project. There's a total of 33, and again, they're on both ends and in the middle of the site. There are some park features. If we may have the next slide, please. Okay, this is just kind of highlighting some of the pocket parks that they have on both ends. If you see the layout on the left-hand side of the slide, that's the entry off of Ferry. So they'll come in, there'll be a gated box there. You put your code in, you drive in, and the first thing you face is you have the park there that's available to the residents. If you drive through the loop, the far upper right-hand side, you will see the pocket park that's provided on the other end. You may have noticed on the earlier slide, there's an internal loop or sidewalk that provides for access for the residents who can walk through, so they don't have to walk on the street. On the far right-hand side, on the upper right portion of the slide, you'll see kind of a small little linear green area or park. That also doubles as the secondary fire access. We were able to work with the county fire on a solution with that. As it turns out, if you notice on the slide, the upper right-hand part of that slide there's like a little a white box there. You can see a couple little squares. That's actually owned by the city of Loma Linda. They have a water facility there. And so there is and I'll show you on one of the later slides, there's actually, they have an easement that goes through there. And so in working with the fire department, they agreed to allow the applicant to secure and work with the city of Loma Linda to secure that that easement or use that easement for secondary access. That green area, they're going to use the kind of the grass pavers, if you will. So they have the stability for the emergency trucks to go through there or the fire trucks if need be, but they also allow, they have a kind of a little openings between the block, if you will, so grass can grow through. So you do have the aesthetic component to that. In this slide here, you will also see kind of an example of some of the apparatus or park features that they will have, in their facility. Next slide, please. Yeah, we are now looking around the property. This is taken from Laurelwood, looking directly. We're looking east now towards the vacant lot, which is the property. Next slide, please. And this is on Laurelwood. If you were standing on the vacant lot and you were looking west down Laurelwood, this is what you would see. And this actually lines up opposite of near the entrance of where the project is. Next slide, please. This is looking up Ferry Street. If you could see on the right-hand side, that's the project site. And this ferry drives up through the neighborhood. I will point out that through our conditions of approval, the applicant will be required to put in, first of all, they're going to widen the street on their side, on the east side of Ferry. They're going to put curb, gutter, and sidewalk there. They're going to also improve the street, surface the street a few feet beyond the center line of Ferry Street. So that'll be included as well. Next slide, please. This is if you were standing at Ferry looking towards the freeway. If you recall, there's a gate there and there's a dead end. And this actually is a public right of way. And so what's going to happen here is the applicant is going to develop a half cul-de-sac, if you will. We're working with the Public Works Department to finalize that design. So again, there's going to be curb and gutter on the left, and the right of way will be moved over to the left a little bit, and there will be curb and gutter and sidewalk on that part of the street. And they are going to, in this particular case, they're actually going to pave up to where the existing pavement is, but there will not be any curb and gutter on the right-hand side of that street adjacent to that house. It's not their responsibility under this project. Next slide, please. And with that, so we have a number of recommendations here. One would be to adopt the resolution, adopting the mitigated negative declaration. I will point out that a CEQA document was prepared for this project that covered all the analysis and air quality, noise, traffic. We had a tribal consultation, which was successful, so we have mitigation for that. And so there was that mitigative declaration that was prepared. Along with that, there's a mitigation monitoring program that's included as an attachment of the conditions of approval. So the first item is to approve the general plan amendment. Then we have the ordinance that approves the development code amendment, changing the property from commercial to medium residential. The third action would be to approve the actual project itself. Now that the zoning and general plan is in place, we are now requesting that the council consider the approval of the project for the plan development for the 96 homes and the subdivision. Again, these are going to be their individual lots, so it is going to be a home ownership project, a gated project. And then the last item would be to schedule this item for the next meeting on November the 18th for the second reading of the ordinance. That concludes my presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions. We do have the applicant also on the line here that could answer any questions that you may have specifically to the project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll open it up to council members. Council member Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. Oliver, tell me about, since it's right next to the freeway, tell me about the sound barrier or wall.
Exactly.
Is there something, that's immediately my first concern there is the sound barrier because of the.
Eric, would you like to address that, please? There is going to be a sound wall component to that. Eric, if you don't mind.
Good evening. Yes, there'll be a 12-foot sound wall that runs adjacent to that freeway.
Is this going to be kind of like an HOA situation? Is there any portion of it that the city is going to have to maintain, or what's the situation here with that?
Yes, sir. It will be an HOA. It will have an HOA over it. We strongly believe in HOAs and their ability to protect, maintain, and enhance. And so we go to great lengths to set them up to make sure that they are successful. And this will fall within their jurisdiction to take care of the walls.
Will the city have, and it might not even be a question for you, but will the city have any obligation to any maintenance within this project anywhere inside of it?
No, we will not.
No.
And it is a gated community, correct?
Yes,
so
it
the
is.
public wouldn't have access to be able to just walk in and use some of its parks or anything like that, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, then I would just like to encourage, as this area grows here, let's start considering some public spaces and parks. I know it's separate from this issue here, but that area really doesn't have any parks or any gathering places for residents to meet up in that area. So just a little side note. That's all.
Councilman, is that a motion for approval on, you're the host?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, is that, all right, Fred and Jim, great. Okay, other comments? If not, Ms. City Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor, if I may, before we call the roll, read the title of the ordinance into the record.
Please, go ahead.
Ordinance number MC 1549, an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of San Bernardino, California, approving development code amendment, zoning map amendment 20-04, changing the zoning district classification from commercial general to residential medium of one parcel, APN 0281-161-48, containing approximately 9.60 acres pursuant to a mitigated negative declaration.
Okay, motion by Fred and Jim, and let's go. We're closing the hearing at 8:39 p.m. approximately. And Ms. City Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Nickel,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard,
Yes.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our consent calendar portion of tonight's meeting. Thank you,
council
Eric.
members.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you for development. Let's move on to our consent calendar items. Councilmember Sanchez, any pulls?
No.
Councilmember Barra?
None.
Councilmember Figueroa?
None, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Charette?
None.
Councilmember Nickel?
None.
Councilmember Richard?
None.
Councilmember Mulvihill?
None.
Move approval.
Udo, second.
All right, motion by Fred and Ted to move the consent calendar. The city clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Nickel,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard,
Yes.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
Consent passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to items to be referred to committee. Any council members? All right. Reports on any conferences? Seeing none, thank you very much for a very successful meeting. Thank you, council members and our city staff. We appreciate you and we thank you again. Have a good evening, everybody. This meeting's adjourned.